Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley, and welcome to Steelers Almighty Scouting Report. Week 3, the Pittsburgh Steelers, their home opener against the Los Angeles Chargers. I keep wanting to say San Diego people. I don't know that I'm ever going to get used to it. It is what it is. Bottom line is, I think this game is going to be, well, first off, when the schedule came out, I think a lot of people just kind of penciled this one in as a win. The Steelers home opener, Chargers going to be rebuilding. This is a win. Well, things have changed. The Chargers are a lot better football team over the first 2 weeks than I think a lot of people anticipated. They're a really physical football team. It's almost a mirror of what the Pittsburgh Steelers are and how they're wanting to win football games. Jim Harbaugh, you know what he wants to do. He wants to be physical on both sides of the ball, run the football, play great defense, and that's exactly what they're doing. The one big difference is that the Steelers have Justin Fields as their quarterback, and however you feel about Justin Fields is how you feel. Justin Herbert is the quarterback for the Los Angeles Chargers. Big difference there. Again, we're Steeler fans. We love the Steelers. Bottom line is Justin Herbert is a big-time quarterback. They haven't had to lean on him. I think it's a better way for the Chargers to win football games is him not having to play the hero role all the time. I think it's more conducive to winning for the Chargers. And up to this point, only 2 games in, but they're doing that. So we're going to dive in to a lot of different stuff today. Also, we got Dave Droegemeier from Locked On Chargers. He joins us, so make sure you guys stick around for that. We're breaking down the scouting report and the Chargers and this matchup today. So let's dive in. First things first, as always, remember to like, follow, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and continue to leave those comments. Steelers Almighty, again, people, is the fastest growing Steelers channel on YouTube. That's because of you and your all's participation. So we really do appreciate it. Let's dig in. So first things first, as far as the personnel of the Chargers, obviously I mentioned Justin Herbert. Things kind of start with him. He's a big-time quarterback. Now, whether you think that he's a top 10, which I think most people believe that he's a top 10 quarterback. Some people even have him top 5. I don't have him quite that high, but he's definitely a top 10 quarterback. He's not being asked to do a ton this year. I think, again, as I mentioned before, I think that's to the betterment because there's going to be some games where you need your quarterback to go win you a football game. That hasn't happened yet. And the reason being is because the Chargers are running the hell out of the football. Look, as Steeler fans, we understand J.K. Dobbins, what he brings to the table. He's been on another level so far with the Chargers. Now, granted, he's averaging 9.9 yards a carry. That's not going to last, but it's happening. I mean, we can't deny what's actually happening in the National Football League. It's not Madden. It's not college football. There is a running back literally averaging 9.9 yards a carry that doesn't have 3 carries on the year, and has broken big runs. He's broken the big runs. He just has a ton of carries to go behind it, playing outstanding football. And then, look, their tackles, Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. Number one, I think they're graded as the 2 highest tackles in football right now. Between the 2 of them, over the course of the first 2 games, they've allowed 1 pressure. Not 1 sack, not, 5 or 6 pressures or something like that. No, combined 1 pressure. Playing all world football at this point in the season. Now, you can say, look, Carolina doesn't really put up a whole lot of resistance. They don't. The Raiders have Max Crosby, though. I do know that, and I know Max Crosby's a game wrecker. Joe Alt just said, no, you're not wrecking the game while I'm out here, and he didn't. So take that for what you will. Be a big matchup. We're going to dig into the matchups there here a little bit later. But, yeah, their tackles are really, really good. As far as the defensive side of the ball, Joey Bosa has had a resurgence. Khalil Mack had his resurgence last year. It's starting to roll over into this season. Joey Bosa was a guy that was really good, but he was hurt the last few seasons. Got his big contract and has been hurt ever since. You know how Steelers Almighty, how we feel. Guys get big contracts. That contract year, they play great. And then right after that, they take a dip. Well, he had a couple of seasons of a dip, so much so that the Chargers had to come to him and say, hey, man, For you to stay, you got to take a pay cut. Your production is not matching what your salary is. We want to be a competitive football team. In order to do that, you've got to take a pay cut. Well, Bosa is playing like he's got a chip on his shoulder, like he's got something to prove again. And so far through 2 games, he's doing it. Like I mentioned, Khalil Mack still doing the same thing. Dalen Henley, middle linebacker, tackling machine. That's part of the physicality that the Chargers bring to the table right now. Is their linebacking core is running all over the field making tackles, and he's the leader in that department. Now, again, Derwin James, I think Derwin James, first of all, I'm not saying that he's the greatest cover safety in the league because he's not, but this guy is amazing. He's absolutely amazing. He makes a ton of tackles in the box. He's fearful for guys going over the middle. I don't know if you line him up one-on-one in a slot corner position, that's not his thing. Against better tight ends, that may be not his thing. But don't tell me Derwin James isn't one of the best safeties in the National Football League, because he is, and he's playing like it so far this season. Some of their free agent additions, like I mentioned, J.K. Dobbins, they basically brought the Ravens running back room with Gus Edwards coming over, both playing really well right now. But Kristen Fulton, look, a lot of people talk about Asante Samuel Jr., and they should. He's very good. But Kristen Fulton has been just as good on the other side, if not better, depending on what system you're looking at or your own eye test. He may be playing better. I just know right now that defense is playing lights out. Again, haven't faced the greatest defenses so far, but neither have the Steelers. So this game is going to be tough. Some of their top draft picks, Joe Alt, again, I mentioned it. Look, he was number 5 overall. The guy is playing outstanding. It's wild that he got to 5. There's a lot of people that thought that he could be even higher than that. But Joe Alt is playing really, really good football. Ladd McConkey had a really good first week. The Chargers didn't have to throw the ball that much in week 2. So he didn't have a ton of opportunities, but he's a good receiver, gets open, runs really good, crisp routes. It'll be important for the Steelers to stick on him and not, again, get a ton of separation, because that's kind of his forte, getting quick separation and then exploding because he's faster than what people anticipate to be. Going over some injuries, we know Russell Wilson's still going to be out. Roman Wilson had a full practice. I don't know if that means he's going to play, but I know he had a full practice. I would love if Roman Wilson could play for the Steelers this week. That would be phenomenal if that could happen. As far as the Chargers, Herbert had a little bit of an ankle. He sat out Wednesday's practice, but there is no doubt this man is going to play. He's tough as nails. We've seen him basically play with I don't even know if it was a broken sternum. He had cracked ribs, a broken finger. I mean, so this ankle is not going to keep him from playing in the game. So that's kind of the personnel, what's going on with the personnel and some of the injuries there. Now, as far as the matchups, let's go over the matchup. This is what really excited me about digging into this football game, because, like I mentioned, this is almost a mirror of each other. The strength versus strength. Again, the Steelers edge rushers against the Chargers tackles. That's what I want to see. What can Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, what can they do against TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith? I want to see that battle, because while they probably are going to help Alt a little bit, maybe they won't. Maybe they say, you know what? We got it handled. And if they do, then TJ's got to be a game wrecker. And on the other side, Alex Highsmith been playing some really, really good football against the run, especially. But I want to see him get after the quarterback. This will be a good test, not only for the Chargers, but this will be a good test for the Steelers on what we can do, because I'm not sure we're going to run into a tackle combination that is this good the rest of the season. Matter of fact, I'm pretty positive we won't. Now, as far as strength, the Steelers' strength versus the Chargers' weakness, it's going to be the Steelers' secondary. Look, we can talk about what maybe we don't have the flashiest secondary. We gave up a few yards to the Broncos. It was at the end of the game, but it was still yards. We were still trying to stop them. The Chargers don't have – the Steelers' secondary is going to be better. You combine Deshaun Elliott with Mika Fitzpatrick, Joey Porter Jr., who's got to stop being so handsy, with Dante Jackson. Yeah. And then Corey Trice Jr., who we saw last week flash and kind of do the things that we think that he's capable of doing. Yeah, the Steelers definitely have an advantage here. Chargers gave away a lot of their receivers in the offseason. I know Quentin Johnston had a good game last week. I get it. But historically, over the first couple of years, he's had the drops, and he's had some issues with his hands. Now, maybe last week he caught 2 touchdown passes. Maybe that's what he needed, a little confidence boost to get going for the Chargers. I don't know. But I do know historically he has had butterfingers, and that can play into the Steelers' hands. So Lad McConkey, like I mentioned before, good receiver, gonna have to cover the guy. We're gonna have to do it. But that's where I'm looking for the Steelers to have a real distinct advantage, is our secondary being able to shut down what the Chargers are trying to do throwing the football. As I mentioned, they're not doing a whole lot of that because they've been able to run the football so well. So the Steelers are stopping the run. So if they can continue to do that, get in obvious passing situations, that's where we may have our advantage, because I do believe in the middle of the offense, or off our defensive line and their offensive line, I think the Steelers have an advantage there too, just not as big of an advantage as our secondary versus their receivers. Now, as far as where the Steelers have a weakness versus their strength, again, it's our receiving core against the secondary. And this might just be a theme all year long, people, until we can figure some stuff out, and maybe even open up the offense a little bit more. That's part of the Pittsburgh Steelers problem, is that they're not opening up the offense enough. I mean, Justin Fields only thrown the ball down the field 12 times past the sticks in 2 games. That's not enough. Now, he's very efficient. He's completed 8 of those passes, and you could say a couple of them got called back. You couldn't say, it's the truth. A couple of them did get called back, so that would even help the numbers. But I think we got to throw the ball down the field and maybe trust some of the other guys. But maybe there isn't a trust. Maybe those guys just aren't getting open. You look at the all 22, there's a lot of times where guys are just not open. So what are you supposed to do? But the Chargers secondary is really good. I mentioned before, you've got Asante Samuel Jr., Kristen Fulton. They're near the tops in the league. They just are. You throw in Derwin James back there, they're going to have an advantage over us. I've said it last week, and I'll say it again this week, people. If you take George Pickens away and you just have the receiving core that's left with the Pittsburgh Steelers, if that receiving core was on the Browns, the Bengals, or the Ravens, what would you be saying about it? That's just the truth. You know how I am. I'm going to tell you the truth. I love the Steelers, but until we prove that we can do something outside of George Pickens, we're going to be at a deficit here. We're just going to be at a deficit. Hopefully, Roman Wilson comes back and he can be the guy that the Steelers need in that department to be able to boost that other side of the field opposite George Pickens. Because as good as Pickens is, he needs some help. He's going to need some help. So, but again, let's not discount his greatness, because Patrick Surtain is, like I mentioned, a top 3 cornerback in the league. And George Pickens had him in a blender pretty much the entire game when they wanted to go to him. There wasn't a whole lot that Surtain was able to do to stop him. So that part we know. We saw it with our own eyes, just didn't take enough shots at doing so. Moving on. So let's talk about the outcome and some of the matchups here. So the location is in Pittsburgh. So that the Steelers home opener. I imagine that the crowd is just going to be a raucous crowd. So yeah, that advantage obviously goes to Pittsburgh. The coaching, I'm going to say this, and it may make Steeler fans mad. That's okay. You know me. I'm just going to be honest. Jim Harbaugh, at this particular moment, I'm giving him the advantage. Now, here's why I say that, people. Don't go jumping into the Allegheny Bridge just yet. Don't go unsubscribing to the channel. Don't do anything crazy. I didn't say that Mike Tomlin wasn't a good coach. For you that believe that Mike Tomlin's a great coach, I didn't say that he wasn't. I didn't say he wasn't good. I just think Jim Harbaugh at this particular moment is better. Everybody can't be the best at everything every single week. And to say that Jim Harbaugh has proven himself to be better, does he have a Super Bowl? No. He doesn't. But what he has done, he's gone to several different programs or organizations and turned them around quickly. He did it in San Francisco. I won't count Michigan because that's college football. We're not doing that. Even though that wasn't a quick turnaround, but we're not doing college football. But he's doing the same thing here. You know, I mean, again, it's 2 games in, but he's got a track record. So at this particular moment, I'm going to give the slight edge to Jim Harbaugh in coaching. But again, that does not mean that I think that Mike Tomlin is a bad football coach. 2 things can be true, people. Okay. You can think Jim Harbaugh is a better coach and also believe that Mike Tomlin is a good coach. So the history, the Steelers kind of own the series 24-11, although the Chargers did win the last time that they played. I think y'all remember that game in 2021. Remember, it was a track meet where the Chargers got out early. They got up 27-10 in the third quarter. We thought it was going to be a blowout. They were literally doing wind sprints up and down the field on the Steelers. And then the next thing you know, the Steelers start to come back. And then the Steelers take the lead in the fourth quarter. And you're thinking, how the hell did we get the lead? And we're going to win. The Chargers drove down, were able to take the lead back and win the football game the last time that they met. I remember that game. It was crazy football game. Chargers ended up winning 41-37. Now, as far as the rosters are concerned, I'm going to say that the Chargers probably have a better roster. Even if you go man for man, their offensive line, I think, might be better just because of the tackles. But the main difference is the quarterback is Herbert. You could say that the defense is that the Steelers even have an advantage on the defense. They have a better roster. And if you say, okay, it's pretty close, but the Chargers have an advantage on the offense, where it really separates itself is the quarterback. And until Justin Fields elevates himself to a higher standard, which again, he needs help doing. I mean, it can't just be him by himself. The coaching staff has to help him, but Justin Herbert has done it. Now, again, Justin Herbert is a guy that, I mean, he's had to play some hero ball because the coaching before the previous coach, I won't even go into his name because any Charger fans out there that are watching are just going to be lambasting with bad comments if I even bring his name up. I said it repeatedly. I thought he was the worst coach in the NFL for the last 2 seasons. And I think it proved out to be true. With the talent that the Chargers had, and that's the best you could do, yeah, that's bad coaching all the way around. All the chances that he constantly took, for no reason, trying to play analytical football, that analytical nerd football, ended up getting you beat more times than it didn't. It was just terrible. They got better coaching, but that's where the separation is at the quarterback position. So that's why I'm giving the matchup, the roster, I'm giving that to the Chargers. Now, as far as the matchups, I think it's about even. I think there are just as many matchup issues that the Steelers are causing the Chargers that the Chargers cause the Steelers because they both stop the run. They both haven't shown a ton in the passing, although you want to say Herbert is better. But the Steelers, again, the Steelers can run the football. The Chargers can definitely run the football, but the Steelers can run the football. I'm going to just say that it's even as far as the matchups because the interior of the Steelers defense, I think, is better than the interior of the Chargers offense. So, where the quarterback is the difference, I think the interior is the defense on the same side of the ball. So I think the matchups are pretty even there. But the outcome, look, I went back and forth, and I was stuck on the Chargers are going to win this game. The Chargers are going to win. I flipped the script. I think the Steelers win. Boswell hits a late field goal. I think it's low scoring. I think the Steelers win 17-16, last second field goal. We drive the field and get like a 48-yarder, knock it in, Boswell. Fans go crazy. The Steelers win the game. I think it's going to be that type of football game, people. I just think it's going to be so back and forth, not high scoring, but I believe the Steelers are going to win 17-16, and I'll take it because the Chargers are a good football team, people. Again, I know at the beginning when the schedule came out, everybody thought, oh, this is going to be a win. Just pencil it in. Simple. Nah, it's not going to be easy. Not that any game in the NFL is easy. Don't get me wrong. but I think people were very confident when the schedule came out. Shouldn't be as confident now. Steelers are going to have to play 4 quarters of football to win this one. They're going to have to strap it on because this is a team that wants to play the exact same way that you do. And they, up to this point, they've done it well. So I'll be excited to watch this football game. Just as a reminder, we're going to be live about 45 minutes before kickoff. So make sure you tune back in on Sunday to come check out Steelers Almighty, our pregame coverage. But you always know we're going to have our postgame coverage 15 minutes after the game is over. We'll be live again, so make sure you come back. Next up, we've got Dave Droegemeier. He is from Locked On Chargers. He is a not necessarily a friend. I've done some stuff with him in the past. Does a great job. He's been doing Locked On Chargers for several years now. He's going to join us to talk about some of the matchups, what's going on with the Los Angeles Chargers, and how he thinks that this matchup is going to go. So we'll bring in David now. All right, so now we're bringing in my man, David Droegemeier from Locked On Chargers. David, how are you doing today, my guy?
I'm doing phenomenal. This is the best month of the entire year for me. You got football, you got baseball about to go into the playoffs. I mean, it's just everything that you could want. It's the fall. It's all about football, all about sports, baby.
Absolutely. Best time of the year. Weather is good. Can't wait for this Sunday. Look, I think, David, this game is kind of a mirror of two teams. I mean, they are so similar. I mean, head coaches are similar. How they want to play and win are similar. I don't see this one getting away from either team. I think this is going to be a fairly close matchup, David.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the defenses on both sides, they both have a couple of good edge rushers. They have some talent on the back end. I feel like they have some young athletic linebackers on both sides. The corners, I think, are probably the area that's a little bit unproven for both of these teams, I would say, especially in the slot. I think that's a position that both teams are still trying to figure out who's going to nail that down. But I feel like on the offensive side, the big difference is obviously the quarterback, and I don't mean no disrespect to Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, but I feel like, if we're just looking at it objectively, Justin Herbert is the better quarterback in this matchup. I think both teams want to run the football. It's really going to boil down to who's able to establish that and also not make any mistakes, no turnovers. That can't happen for either team.
Let's stick right there with that. Justin Herbert, look, most sane people, and I'm going to put sane because you know how the internet can be, most sane people have him as a top 10 quarterback in this league. A lot of people top 5 quarterback in this league. But the way that they're playing football, at least through the first 2 games, is different than in years past for the Chargers. To me, again, as an outside person looking in, because I don't cover the Chargers, I don't look at them every week, it seems to me that this is, look, I don't want to make light of his talent, but I just think it's a better way for them to play football because a lot of times, and I think you could probably attest to this, he was having to play hero ball. Not that he was doing it on his own. He had to do it. And if he didn't, they lost. And that's just not a sustainable way to win in this league. And I don't think it's ever been that, but it's definitely not the way to win in this league. And I think this is a better way for Herbert to be a better overall quarterback, even if his numbers aren't going to be astronomical.
Well, especially when you win or lose, it's on the quarterback, whether it's their fault or not, which I can't stand. I feel like that's the worst take in all of the National Football League is that wins or a quarterback stat in a team game, in a team game. I just don't get it whatsoever. The Chargers have had no semblance of a running game the last 3 seasons. They also had a bottom 5 defense the last 3 seasons. So they had to have Justin Herbert go out there and be Superman because he didn't have a lot of support. Yeah, they had a lot of talent. I mean, they had a lot of outside talent, but this is a completely different philosophy. I think before, under Tom Telesco, under the litany of first-time head coaches that he employed, it was all about let's build from the outside in. And now you have an old school, really kind of a physical type of brand of football that Jim Harbaugh wants to play, that he wants to establish, right? He's done it every single place that he's been. We're going to run the hell out of the football. We're going to dominate the line of scrimmage. We are going to control the clock, and we're going to play some damn good defense. And through 2 games, that's exactly what they have done. They are the number 1 defense in the National Football League, and they have the number 1 runner in the National Football League with J.K. Dobbins, who has been absolutely insane. I mean, he's running 9.9 yards per carry, has 3 runs of 40+ yards, has 7 runs of 10+ yards. J.K. Dobbins has been an absolute man possessed. I think he's had a gigantic chip on his shoulder. So this is going to be the real test, though. They played the Carolina Panthers. They played the Las Vegas Raiders. Now you're going up against a real legitimate defense, a defense that is, the second best defense in the National Football League, has a really, really good job of stopping the run. We already talked about the talent that they have upwards and downwards, which I think is definitely very similar for the Chargers as well. So it's going to be who's going to be able to make the plays on offense that's going to separate between who is going to win this football game, who is going to be able to score touchdowns. Because field goals is not going to do it. The Steelers have scored 1 touchdown through 8 quarters of football. And I think that's the big difference here, between these 2 teams is the Chargers have punched it in the end zone a couple of different times. So who's going to be able to play clean offense? We know the defenses are going to show up, they travel, but who's going to be able to make enough plays to be able to win the game?
You mentioned Jim Harbaugh and, his mentality and what he's done everywhere that he's been and how he wants to play. And it's evident through the first 2 games, like you mentioned. Did you think that he was going to be able to turn it around this quickly? I mean, it's one thing to do it, David, at the end of the year, they're just kind of feeling things out. And at the end of the year, you know what? They're playing hardball football. This has started immediately. Did you think it was something that they were going to be able to do right now?
I mean, as a Chargers fan, you always have some pessimism just because we've dealt in the land of charging for a very, very long time, where they find just spectacular ways to lose and snatch defeat within the jaws of victory because they just don't know how they did not know how to close out football games. The one thing that Jim Harbaugh has shown throughout his coaching tenure is that he turns franchises around quickly. He turns bad teams into good teams in a matter of a few years or less. The San Francisco 49ers were, I think, 6-10 before he got there. First year, 13-3. Went to the NFC Championship game as the head coach of the 49ers. So he does have a track record of being able to establish a culture and to be able to turn things around quickly. This quickly, I probably did not expect that. I did not think that it was going to be, 2-3 games in, them being one of the better teams in the league. But I do know that he was going to establish a culture. He was going to bring an identity, which is something that the Chargers have been missing and lacking since the Marty Schottenheimer days. And we're talking about 20+ years ago.
Right. Well, the one thing about it is that, this is the best quarterback that he's ever had.
No question.
And I don't even think we can say that it's close if you want to. I really don't believe that.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew Luck probably would be the other option that you would consider maybe.
Correct. But that's college.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's college. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I just, when you bring his type of mentality to, look, you mentioned it earlier. The Chargers had talent. It's not that they didn't have talent. It was just putting it all together and playing the right way. They just didn't do that.
Yeah.
And that's why I think this matchup is going to be so good, is because they literally play the exact same way. But again, the quarterback is the difference. You did mention J.K. Dobbins running with the chip on his shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
I think he got a bad shake in Baltimore. I think that was one of the things that he got hurt. But I mean, when he was playing well. He was successful. And
he averages over 6 yards a carry, which is crazy.
Right. I'm just like, I mean, they moved on because he got hurt. I'm like, I don't know. This guy was still really good when he was playing for you.
They were big freak injuries, like just injuries that you don't see all the time. And they were, serious injuries that zap you from your entire season. It's some ACL injuries, Achilles injuries, as Aaron Rodgers can attest to. I mean, last year he had 2 plays in and then right away ruptured his Achilles and it was done for the year. Right. And so the fact that J.K. Dobbins, as a running back, was able to rehab from that Achilles injury and come back and look even more explosive than he did before he got hurt, I think is a testament to him and the hard work, truly hard work that he's put in. And I think it's important to remember or remind everybody, J.K. Dobbins is 25 years old. He is
Right.
still very, very young. And because of the injuries, he has a lot less mileage on the tires than some other running backs that have come into the league from the same time frame that he has. So I think he's feeling fresh. He's feeling rejuvenated. He's in a system that knows what he is capable of and he's comfortable with because he's been there before with Greg Roman, and he's having a lot of fun out there, and you can see it.
Yeah. Sticking with the running game, and one of the big time matchups that I think I'll be honest, David, I think this is one of the best when you talk about position matchups that we're going to see in the National Football League this year is Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt blocking TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. First off, let's start. How good are those tackles? Because to me, they look phenomenal.
They are excellent. I think, well, I'll put it in perspective like this. Rashawn Slater, through 2 games and 53 pass blocking snaps, has allowed 1 pressure. 1 single pressure, not a sack. I'm talking about where the pass rusher was even close to the quarterback and forced him off his spot or forced him to have to make a play. 1 time. Rashawn Slater is he's a former All-Pro, but he is in that All-Pro form this year. He looks phenomenal. He's caving things in the running game. He's always been very athletic, very technically sound, but he is on another level when it comes to pass protection. So I think the big matchup is the primetime one on the other side with TJ Watt and Joe Alt. And I think Joe Alt passed his first test, locking up Max Crosby and the Raiders in week 1, did not allow a single pressure, did not allow a sack. And I think he only allowed 1 against the Carolina Panthers as far as the pressure is concerned for Joe Alt. So Joe Alt, at least up to now, has definitely seemed and looked like he has been the real deal. But this right here is the true litmus test. This is going to be baptism by fire because TJ Watt is a former defensive player of the year and has an unreal motor. I think that's definitely something that we're going to be looking at. And hey, when you're a 5th overall pick and you get tossed right in out of the frying pan and into the fire, this is what it's all about. This is why the Chargers picked him where they picked him, because of matchups like this. And with Justin Herbert dealing with a little bit of an ankle, he's going to play. He's a tough son of a gun. But with that might limit his mobility a little bit, which was going to make it even more important for this offensive line to handle their business and give them enough time to make some plays.
Gotcha. Going to the other side of the football with talking about the Chargers.
Yeah.
Jesse Minter coming in as the defensive coordinator. There were some questions. I talked to some people, didn't know if it was going to translate what he did to college was going to translate to the pros. And I'm thinking, philosophy is philosophy. As long as you have the players, I think it's going to work. And the Chargers always had the players on defense. Now, they had to be healthy.
Yeah.
That was a thing that they weren't always healthy. But now that they are, tell me what he's meant to this defense.
I mean, it's been unbelievable what he's been able to do, because last year the Chargers were a bottom 23, 24 defense in the league, and they've been in that realm the last few years with a guy who was supposed to be a defensive wonderkind with Brandon Staley, but that just never materialized. Right. The thing is that people don't remember is Jesse Minter was in Baltimore, and who was the number 1 defense in the NFL last year? The Baltimore Ravens.
That's right.
Pretty much the same exact defense with a few slight, changes was the defense that he ran at Michigan, which was the number 1 defense in college football last year. So we know philosophy-wise that the schemes, they work. If they are operated the way they're supposed to, they can go out there and do damage. And they truly have, through 2 games. And that's why I think it was really important for Jesse Minter to kind of stress, hey, Joey, hey, Khalil, I really, really would love to have you in the fold for my first year as an NFL defensive coordinator. I mean, that would make any defensive coordinator sleep better at night when you have 2 fantastic edge rushers. And to their credit, both of them were able to, and they decided to take pay cuts to stay and play for the Chargers. And Jesse Minter has deployed them to great effectiveness. They've done a phenomenal job stopping the run, being very stingy in coverage, very, very sticky. And they've only allowed 13 points through 2 games, which for Justin Herbert specifically, if his defense gives up less than 20 points, he's, I think, 18-2. So it's one of those things where if the Chargers are able to get to that number offensively and keep their opponents under that number, they have a very good chance to win.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like I mentioned before, look, we Justin Herbert is outstanding, but you can't expect him to play hero ball
Oh,
every
absolutely not.
single week. It
Yeah,
just that's just not sustainable. It's just not.
you're right.
Um, the one person that I think we talked about J.K. Dobbins having a resurgence is Joey Bosa. Look, last year it was Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
People thought Khalil Mack was finished, and then he ended up with all those sacks and playing really good football. This year, it's like, man, can Joey Bosa stay healthy? Well, it was never that he wasn't good. He just wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
Well, now he seems to be healthy, and it seems like he's back to the same Joey Bosa that we all remember.
Yeah, Joey Bosa has a big chip on his shoulder as well because he wants to remind the league of how complete of an edge rusher that he is and an edge defender that he is. Because when he is on the field, he is dominant against the run. He is really able to set that really physical edge and kind of take that away and use his hand usage, which is legendary, to be able to get off blocks and make tackles. And as a pass rusher, when he's healthy, he's one of the premier guys in the league. And that's always been the caveat with Joey is, can he stay on the field? And I think we talked about it on our show. When Joey Bosa plays 16 games, he gets double-digit sacks every single time. That's what his stats show. So if he's on the field, he is a force to be reckoned with. And I think if I'm looking at the tackles of the Steelers, they should definitely get ready for this one because Jesse Minter is going to send the house. They are going to get creative with their blitz packages, their simulated pressures. They're going to try to make them guess who's coming and where they're coming from. And, with a offensive line that last week gave up, I think 12 pressures in 27 dropbacks for the Steelers. That's something that they're going up against a much, much more potent pass rush unit with the Chargers this week. So they better strap it up and get ready.
Well, and that's the thing. The Steelers are trying to figure it out. Look, Dan Moore Jr. has played well after playing 3 years of just bad football. Let's call it what it is. Played well the first 2 weeks. Troy Fautanu, Mike Tomlin came out this week and basically said he was the best tackle from day one. And he was better than Broderick Jones. It was just him being healthy. So we'll see how that works. I think that's another big-time matchup.
Oh, yeah.
Khalil Mack and Bosa going against Moore and Fautanu. Steelers got to figure that one out. We talked a little bit earlier about keys to victory. But let me just put you on the spot before I get you out of here, David. Who wins this game?
Yeah, I think this is like you said, these are two defenses that look very, very similar to each other. I think they have stars up and down. But we look at the offenses, and that's where the big disparity begins. I think, like I said, the Steelers have only scored one touchdown, kicked a bunch of field goals. They are 2-0, but you look at the quarterbacks that they're going up against. They're going up against the best quarterback that they've played through 3 games this Sunday. And so I feel like I just lean on the team that has the better quarterback in this situation. And so that's the Chargers here. I do expect it to be a very, very physical, very close game. I'm not going to say a lot of points. I think this is probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 24-17, roughly. I think that's probably where I'm at with the score. This one could go either way. I really do believe that. But this is a real test for both teams. Let's see who passes it.
I got you. Yeah, 24-17, close game. I don't even know that they get that many points in this game. This is going to be just a down to the wire fight, and which, again, I love that type of football. Charger fans, they're not used to that type of football, but trust me, from somebody that's been around, that's followed the Steelers for years, you're going to love this type of football, man. It's enjoyable. It can be nerve-wracking sometimes, don't get me wrong, but you guys have a different type of quarterback, which kind of eliminates some of that. But David, again, man, I want to thank you for giving us your time today. Tell everybody where they can find you and the stuff that you are putting out there right now.
Absolutely a pleasure. So you guys can find my work at Locked On Chargers. That's anywhere you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple Music, Spotify, or if you prefer video, we are also on YouTube on our Locked On Chargers YouTube channel. You can find me on X or Twitter, however you like to call it, at DroTalkSD. You can find my show on Twitter as well at Locked On LAC. We do 5 shows a week all year round, not just the football season, literally all year round. So if you are a Charger fan, please check us out. We'd appreciate it.
All right, man. We appreciate your time and thank you. And good luck on Sunday.
Good luck to you guys as well and for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. All right, man. Thank you, David, again for joining us. David, again, everybody, make sure you go and subscribe to Locked On Chargers. He does a great job, him and his partner over there. So we appreciate him giving us the time today. Look, this is going to be a knockdown, drag them out football game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And quite frankly, I encourage that. I want that out of this week because they're a physical football team. Well, let's go get physical right back with them and go come out with a win. I think the offense has got to open up a little bit more. We can't just continuously rely on 6-8 yard passes. We got to stay in front of the sticks. Those penalties last week were a killer. And I know there's a lot of you out there that think that the refs, they were just calling all these ticky-tack holding penalties. No, they weren't, man. They really weren't. The Steelers were holding. They're flags. Now, do you have to call every single one of them? Probably not, but they did. But I think the message behind that is, and I think Mike Tomlin kind of said the same thing, just don't do it. Just don't do it, and you'll be okay. So I think the Steelers got to continue to stay ahead of the sticks, continue to run the football. This might be a game where the pass is going to have to set up the run because they get after you so well in the running game because they want to shut that down first. I believe they're going to bring a bunch of exotic blitzes. This is going to be a big game for the offensive line, Zach Frazier, to understand where protections need to be, and Justin Fields to understand where the pressure is coming from and to be able to get the ball out of his hand because, again, that was the thing in Chicago that people always talked about is he held the ball. He held the ball. You're not going to be able to do it this week. They've got two good edge rushers. They're going to be coming at you, and they bring a lot of different pressures from different areas. You can't hold on to the ball. See it and throw it. It's what he's got to do. Or see it and run away from it. One of the two. You got to make quick, decisive decisions. And the defense got to stop the run. Got to stop the run. The Chargers want to run the football. They're going to run it, and they're going to run it again, and they're going to continue to run it because that is their formula right now. I don't think they have the receiving core that's going to go out there and get 350 yards against the Pittsburgh Steelers against what we have. Doesn't mean they're not capable because I know the quarterback is capable, but I'm not sure that the receiving core is necessarily capable or that they even want to play that way. And since they don't want to play that way, well, make them one-dimensional. Make them have to throw the ball, and then we'll take our chances with Watt, with Highsmith, with Herbig, Porter Jr., Minka, Elliott, Jackson. We'll take our chances with all those guys, and let's just see what they can do against who we have out there on the defensive side of the football. So I appreciate everybody being here and joining us today, man. Thank you guys for continuously supporting the channel. We absolutely love you guys. We're on a race to get to 3,000 subscribers. We're just over 2,700. So again, continue to follow, continue to subscribe, continue to like, continue to leave all those great comments that you guys are continuously leaving. I know that we don't agree on everything, but we're not supposed to agree on everything, man. That's not what this is about. This is about this. Again, Steelers Almighty is a fan site by fans for fans. I am a fan. So, and you guys are fans too. So we appreciate it. Thank you guys. And again, let's go Steelers. Here we go. Aloha.